What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Do Marketing Differently podcast presented by Go Rogue X. My name is Brian Fitton, and this is the podcast dedicated to marketers who want to serve first and stand out of the crowd. Make sure you guys subscribe to our podcast because we're going to bring you weekly tips and tricks, resources for those who want to be the go-to name in their industry. This week, we are talking about an amazing topic, which is basically that is on everybody's minds: Zoom calls and recorded calls and conference calls and all that, and why you should record all of those. And we're going to dive into that. But I have to welcome my amazing co-host, Miss Lauren Lewis. How's it going, Miss Lauren?
It's going good. How are you, Brian?
Doing well. Trying to keep that social distancing thing here, making sure that, when you're recording a Zoom call, you got to talk about how to make sure that everything is framed accordingly, make sure audio is good and all that. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this. But before we do that, we like to start off with something fun. And what is that?
We like to start off every episode with, what are you obsessed with this week? So, Brian, what are you obsessed with?
This week, man, it's been interesting. Staying at home, doing a lot of home projects. I'm starting to kind of get into. I've always enjoyed decorating and stuff, and I always love the home renovation shows. For some reason, I've just never been a carpenter kind of guy. I've been more of a techie guy. And so, so I've kind of gotten into some of the home renovation stuff and all the things you can do with woodworking. And I have a lot of friends that do it already, but it's I kind of got to do that this weekend, redoing our pantry and stuff. And so I'm kind of I've been researching and seeing what all the things you can do. And it's really interesting. I've been a car guy. And so a lot of that kind of translates into the woodworking area. And it's actually easier to do woodworking than it is to do
woodworking is the same as cars?
No, I just meant repairing. So
right, okay.
If you're doing body work and stuff like that, there's a lot of wood filler and things that are kind of the same. You're sanding and shaping and painting and making sure everything works. And I'm still terrible at it.
Oh gosh.
Terrible. But yes, I've been kind of diving into that. So it's been it's been a good change of pace from the tech side of stuff that I usually do. So but anyway,
that's awesome.
Yeah, what about you?
So mine's tech.
Hey,
well, kind of.
All right.
But so I have recently been looking for an app to do more photo editing with, and there's of course a million apps out there, and kind of finding what I needed because I'm not a professional photo editor and everything like that, but I wanted some that had a little bit more features, and I kind of found that you kind of just get what you pay for, and so I found one called Lensa. And have you ever tried that one?
I have not. No.
So I really like it because it makes when you hit the magic correction button, its actual automatically corrected editing is actually really good.
Huh.
And it's got some of the I guess editing features that make you feel really good about yourself, where it kind of smooths things out, but it doesn't look fake. And that's one of most of those apps are just horrendous, where you can see that someone has been using a face editor or whatever like that. Yeah. But so I've really enjoyed it. It was pretty affordable. It was it's actually only $2 a month and everything, but I've really enjoyed it with some of my photos, playing around with what you can also do with the backgrounds and the different features with it. So I would highly recommend you can try it out for free for 2 weeks before you decide to pay for it and everything. But it's a really good app. You should check it out.
Nice. I like that. And maybe we need to do that more often. Maybe bringing some tips and tools and stuff,
about
right
up
front. Yeah. Maybe we should have a weekly one. Okay, we're going to do that.
Weekly app.
We're just going to start doing that. Weekly app that we're going to test out and try, or just tool or something like that, because I think that would be beneficial. Let us know if that's something that you guys want us to do, because I like that. I like all the tools.
Yeah,
and stuff
me too.
So,
Me too.
All right. Hey, let's not waste any time. Let's dive into this topic. So, Lauren, do you have a quote for us to kick us off here?
I do. So this quote, and the source is rather interesting, from Footwear News, but I think everyone's talking about Zoom right now. And so there's a lot of interesting news outlets that are talking about, but they were talking about the success of Zoom. And they said the success has been mirrored in the US and other regions impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Between March 7th and March 22nd, Zoom has seen a consistent increase in downloads per day, rising from 195,000 to nearly 2 million at the end of that period. This rise coincides with the number of businesses migrating to a work-from-home policy, as well as increasing number of consumers who are using the software for their social interactions. So pretty much from my perspective, everyone's using Zoom right now.
Yeah. That's a great perspective to have. It's insane, those numbers of like how much the increase has happened, obviously, since the pandemic. I mean, it only makes sense, but there are a lot of other companies kind of getting lost in the dust, which, Skype and I'm trying to think. Loom obviously does a screen recording sharing,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of other companies that do. Cisco, GoToMeeting, that type of stuff, WebEx. There's a lot of those platforms out there, but Zoom apparently has done a great job of making it easy to use. And
Hmm.
so in this episode, we wanted to talk about that, like why you need to be recording those calls, because you never know what you can use as content,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing strategy meetings or something with your team, client calls, coaching calls, or just even just kind of a general behind the scenes. This is a great way to document what's going on. And so, but let's kind of dive into the first topic, Lauren. What is that?
Well, I mean, really, how can you use Zoom to create content? I mean, I think you think about, I'm just having a meeting with some of my staff. How could that ever be exciting or interesting to someone else?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think it is. Gary Vee says it best, right? He's like, don't create, document.
Hmm.
Like, you're just documenting what's going on. And it really is up to kind of a video editor to make something interesting out of it. But my thing, and we've done this actually for other clients, is cutting down those just general calls into little snippets. So it could be one of those things where, if you're already going through an agenda, right, and you're already naming out certain things that you're going to be talking about, maybe that's something your clients want to know. It's like, all right, guys, we have this problem around marketing. Like, what tools are we going to be using for photo editing? And then, Lauren here comes up with a photo edit, and she says, hey, this is a great photo editing app. This is, I think, is going to be, it's really easy to use. They do all this. That in and of itself is a great little short clip that you're bringing value as content that you could give to your audience. And so it is one of those things. It's like but you don't know those things until you just make sure to record that, and it's already
Hmm.
free. It's included in that. Even if you have the free version, you can record those meetings. If you have the paid version, obviously gives you more capabilities, but they do a great job on the back end of giving you those files, and it's easy to access. But that's why I think you just never know what information is going to come out in those calls that you could use as content to benefit your audience.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies are also trying, with staff that are disconnected, they're also trying to do things that are fun. And I think that's really important. You mentioned behind the scenes, and it's hard to imagine that when you're not even at your workplace. But this
Mm-hmm.
is also part of you continuing to build your company culture. And so if you can document maybe like a virtual game night, or maybe just a check in with your staff where people, I mean, even if you didn't have the sound on, you could just kind of have a quick little clip of like in a story of showing the smiling faces of staff trying to reconnect. I mean, that's reassuring in itself that your business is still functioning as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things that you can do. And I think you're completely right. We should always be documenting just in case that even like a leader giving an update to their company about what's going on, you can repurpose that and take obviously what would be beneficial to the public and use that. So you're not having to also just re-record yourself 20 times to something that you could have been done once.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that. And so today I think we're going to dive into kind of the top tips as well. So, Lauren, let's jump into those.
Yeah. So we found this awesome article and I love the title is How to Not Look Ugly on a Webcam. So there is actually some really practical tips or maybe things that you haven't thought of. They're nothing that's just mind blowing, but some practical tips to keep your Zoom call looking great and it's easy to be able to repurpose for content. I think we've all seen those funny things of things that have gone wrong on a
Mhm.
Zoom call that people just forgot that they were on camera, which is really funny. You should totally check those out. But these tips will hopefully help keep you professional and these clips to be able to use later on for content.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So the first one is to mind your background. So tell us a little bit about what should be in your background or what shouldn't be in your background, Brian.
Yeah, making sure to have things set up appropriately. So, with me right now, like I have a shelf behind me. It has some decorations and stuff, which probably could have done a better job of making sure that I had all those things arranged appropriately for the camera shot. But it is one of those that making sure to show maybe even a little bit of your personality. So if you are at home, right, showcasing some of that because it gives you a little more confidence when you're being on camera. If you don't know, if you're just sitting in the corner and it's a wide view of everything that's in the background of your house, at least you should at least have that idea of like, okay, I have this pile of dirty clothes over here, and I have this, all these toys or whatever else. Like, try to eliminate all of that stuff. So mess in the background, and then obviously things are just not distracting, right? And so if you can sit to where you do have some type of wall behind you, we're going to talk even like virtual backgrounds and stuff like that, but that makes it easy for the camera to kind of pick up. But it is one of those of making sure that your background is distraction free, but also lighting. You want to make sure to kind of sit, if you can, with a natural source of light, right? So a window or something like that can kind of give you a little more softer light coming in, rather than just the harsh, bulbs that are in your house or fixtures and stuff like that, because a lot of times those cast some harsh shadows. So if you can sit facing a window and then the camera is basically hitting a wall behind you, that's the best scenario. And it's the weirdest thing. Like, I've been a photographer for years and years and talking about video and vlogging and different things like that. It was the dumbest thing, but I think Casey Neistat back in like 2016 was helping Justin Bieber learn how to do video blogging or vlogging. And he just said, he's like, just go to a window and then that's where you start recording. And it was, to me, I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, you're always fighting lighting, and so it's one of those things that's like, oh yeah, just go to a window and then pull like what are the shades? Not the curtains, but like what is it, Lauren? Help me
What are you
here.
trying?
It's like, you have your curtains that block out light, but then you also have kind of the thinner layer of
Blinds?
thing. No, like a thinner shade.
Like a sheer curtain.
Sheer curtain. That's what we're looking for. The sheer curtain. So it is one of those things, like, pull that in, especially if it's white, because that gives it's almost like a diffuser. And so that can help kind of even soften the light to where you look even better on camera, kind of getting rid of those imperfections that we all have. So anyway, but yeah, that's a somewhat of a thing to make sure, obviously, background looks good.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have gone deep. I think, speaking of windows, one thing, just a quick tip, is to not be backlit. And you might not think of like, okay, he said windows, I'm going to get as many windows as I can. And then behind you is a window, and that will cause you basically to be very dark, and the rest of your background's going to be very light. And that's what's called being backlit. And do not do that. Face the window.
Yes.
For sure. So another tip that I thought was really good was use an Ethernet cable to connect to the internet and turn off your Wi-Fi. Yes. So why would you do that, Brian?
Well, you want to make sure, anytime you can get a hardline connection on anything is way better than a wireless connection. Wireless has been, technology has come so far, and even just the past few years when it comes to wireless connections. But even that, you're adding another layer of something to go wrong or something to have issues with. And so if you can do a hard line into your computer to make sure you just get the strongest internet connection available, because we all love the catch up play between, audio and video, and things are coming in at different times. And so they always get out of sync if you don't have a good, strong connection. We've dealt with that too. There's sometimes you just can't fix that, but if you can, try to make sure to at least prepare for those problems. Ethernet is going to be the easiest way. So that little internet cable, make sure it's plugged into your computer. There's some sound effects.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so the third one is a quiet environment. And Brian, you've already kind of talked a little bit about that. But really setting up your environment to where that you have maybe 30 minutes to an hour of just a quiet environment. And this could be turning off the notifications on your phone or putting it into like airplane mode or sleep mode is always really wise, so you don't have those dings and everything. It's also, right now with social distancing, you're generally with your family. And so it's a great time to, if you have young children, to see if your spouse could help you out for that, 30 minutes or hour to keep, children from running in. And I think there was that famous news clip.
It was BBC. Yeah.
Reporting on some Asian particular crisis or something, and his children come bounding in, which was really endearing. And I think that's something to like remember, that, people are very understanding that you're working from home. But if you can have your environment being quiet, that's a great place. That's a great start.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, I mean, just, it is one of those things of making sure that everything is taken care of in the background. But computer notifications, that's one thing that a lot of people forget, is making sure that there are not notifications going off on your computer, because, mine are hooked up to my text messaging and everything. So make sure to go in your preferences, kill all of notification sounds or whatever else to make sure that everything's set up. Especially if you're the one doing the recording, those are all going to come in as computer sounds. And so Zoom allows those, because if you're playing a video or something, they want that audio to come through. So you need to make sure that those things are turned off. So
Absolutely. So this one was one I really had not thought of. And I'm really bad about keeping a 20,000 tabs open on my browser. And I'm also running Photoshop in the background. I'm doing so many things that I forget to close those things, but that can really slow your computer down. So do some computer cleaning. So what would that involve, Brian?
Well, one thing I always do is completely restart before we do a recording, because you never know what is actively running in the background. There are all kinds of programs out there that can make sure, I use Clean My Mac. That's a great program. It has way more capabilities than just like an antivirus software, but it can actually show you, hey, this is like system junk that's kind of running in the background that you don't even know of. So it is one of those things of making sure maybe run one of those programs, restarting your computer. That way, everything is just completely at a fresh start. We do that a lot of times with live streaming equipment. If you're going live, you want to make sure that everything itself is like ready to go, that you have the most computing power available to you. And that helps by just having everything completely cleaned out. So I think the tabs thing, making sure all the programs in the background are completely shut down. But that's just a great place to start or restart, and then kick off your call. Especially if you're the one recording, it's going to add a lot of weight to that, to your computing power. And so you want to make sure that everything's shut down.
Another great tip is to make sure you're not uploading anything during your call. I'm constantly uploading stuff to Google Drive for my job and everything, but it's always important for me to remember to pause those things or just do that before or after. It's also a great time if you cannot do the Ethernet cable and you are on Wi-Fi. It's a great thing to ask family, or if you are still in an office, to ask people around you, possibly not to be downloading or streaming large things during that time.
Yeah, anybody who's on the Xbox, maybe playing some games or something, or even just kids, streaming Netflix or whatever. Like, just have a no screen time for 30 minutes while you're trying to do your call, because that makes a lot of difference.
Sure.
And two, even kind of test out. I mean, it's one of those things that you might test out, during the day, especially if you're working from home. What times of day are people really using internet? Like, I'm just noticing it's just slower at 1:00 during the days. Maybe that's times when parents are letting their kids watch more YouTube or something like that. So you just kind of know, like, hey, I need to make sure that we're doing our calls in the morning, just to make sure to prevent any kind of issues like that. So
awesome. Okay, another tip is to frame yourself in the center. So this kind of seems like a duh thing, but I think sometimes when we're kind of in the mode of like talking, and especially if you're in a meeting and everything, you may not be thinking about exactly how you look. But if you want this to record and you want to reuse this later, it's really important to frame yourself. So what tips would you give, Brian, to framing yourself?
Double check all the time. So I'm trying to make sure, even myself, as we're talking here, I'm framed up appropriately. Yeah. It is one of those things that you gotta, framing yourself appropriately. So many people go at the lower angle. So because it's just natural, we're holding our phones down. And so we don't think about it until we're on camera, but it is a lot to like hold up your hand like that. It is a lot to think about putting up your laptop on a stack of books or something like that. I've done that. It's one of those things, if you're using your webcam, get it at eye level as best as possible, because that's going to frame you well. That way you don't have your double chin popping up here, or just even up, too high up above, just kind of looks unnatural. Right. So if you are talking, you want it to be as eye level as possible. And so that's framing yourself, making sure you're kind of in the middle, but then also, eye level with the camera as well. So
that's a great tip. All right. Last but not least is make yourself presentable. And again, seems obvious, but if you are not planning on recording and thinking, it's just a meeting, whatever, I'll record it. You're, a okay, from a woman's perspective, your hair's in a messy bun, you're in a sweatshirt, you didn't put any makeup on. And then there were some amazing things said, and you're like, oh, we did record it, but I looked horrendous. I would never want to share that.
Yeah.
That can be avoided, as well as when just naturally, if we look, professional or put together and everything, we tend to exude a lot more confidence. We tend to be a little bit just more excited within those interactions. And so always looking your best is a great way to make sure that your content is also presented at its best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is one of those things. I mean, I think for guys, just in general, it's easier for us just to hop in front of camera and make sure. But give yourself a check in the mirror. I'm trying to think, make sure I checked myself. So, but it is one of those things. You just gotta, make sure that everything looks appropriate. Fix your hair a little bit or whatever, because you don't. I think you hit the nail on the head. What's terrible is a lot of times people create great content, but then they don't like how they look, or they don't like how the recording went or something like that. It's, you have to keep your audience in mind too. If you're recording these calls with the mindset of like, I want to provide value to my audience or my clients or whatever, a lot of times they don't necessarily care, and they will give you that grace, right? But you want to have that confidence to be like, I'm proud of this.
Mm-hmm.
It was great content. Everything's not perfect, but I can send that out and I still feel professional, still feel like it looks good. And obviously you're just trusting that, the grace that other people have, and that authenticity that you're trying to communicate will communicate and will connect with your audience. And so, but it really is one of those things of just making sure to have all that stuff just kind of ready to go. Just be mindful of it. And, don't be, I kind of joke because I have basically the same outfit for most black or white shirts or gray shirts, and then black hats. Like, you do want to somewhat kind of change up what you're wearing too, sure, especially if you're doing multiple in one day. So just kind of keep that in mind, to where it does, not necessarily that it doesn't look like you're wearing the same thing constantly, but it is one of those things of like, you want to have a brand, mm-hmm, but you also want to make sure that it kind of changes up the feel of the content. So when people see it, you're wearing something different. It's like, oh, this is a different day or a different time. That just kind of helps make that connection as well. So, and I don't like, again, Lauren, I don't do well with this because I like my blacks and whites. And so not a whole lot of difference in color here. So, but for everybody else, you should totally do that.
Sure. All right. So those are our top tips for basically creating a killer Zoom recording. Okay. But you've got your recording. You did great. You looked fantastic. So Brian, what would you suggest would be the best tools to repurpose that content in an efficient manner?
Oh, let's see. So the one that I use, and it's honestly a free tool that is super easy, especially after Zoom calls. So Ecamm Live is a software. They have a companion app that's called Ecamm Movie Tools, and it basically is taking a recording that you've done in Ecamm or Zoom or wherever, and it is a very cut and dry. There's no frills to this program, but you can trim your video. So you basically import it into this. It shows it on the sidebar. You're just like, that's the video I want. And then you have a little toolbar that you can select, trim this video. And then you can export that at anything. So it's crazy because you can actually do it as an MP4 file. You can do it as MOV file. You can also just pull the audio straight out of that. So if there was a time you're like, man, that's great content, but I look terrible, or my guest was not, having the best appearance, or our team, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
You can still pull that audio out and still send that as an audio file. So you can export it as MP3, a WAV file, all the different formats that kind of give you some different options for that. So yes, Ecamm Movie Tools. It's a free resource. You can download it. I think it's available on PC, obviously for sure on Mac, but should be available for all the platforms. Super easy to use, compresses it, so makes it ready for uploading Facebook, Instagram, web, wherever you want to put it. So yeah. What about you, Lauren? Do you have any other additional tools?
I mean, Ecamm is the one that I use, so because you told me to. So, but I would say it is a really easy tool, and that's something that we're always looking, And after that, there are so many great resources out there for whatever you're intending to create the content with. One of our favorites, if you're doing a very small clip that you should totally check out, Canva is really playing around with a lot of fun templates for video. And I would highly suggest just checking it out. It still has pretty limited capabilities, but if you had a short clip that you were just trying to real quickly put in like maybe a little nice graphic frame on there, that would be a great way to do that. Canva is free to certain extents, and then it's very affordable for their pro account. So I would highly suggest that would be a great resource to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We love Canva around here. We actually have an episode we'll link in the show notes about Canva specifically.
Yes.
We need to do an updated Canva.
Yes, we do. I think
video.
the last episode was like 5 ways you can use Canva for your business.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Well, cool. Hey, this has been a great episode,
Mhm.
Lauren. I'm very happy that we dove into this. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. We'd love to connect with you, as well as answer any questions around Zoom or recording or the process of content creation after that fact. We would love to help you out with that. So make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. That helps us and gets it in front of other people as well that could use this content. So if you have somebody, a friend, make sure to share it with them. We would definitely appreciate it. So until next week, we'll see you later. Thanks.